Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. The government shutdown hits day 34, and air traffic control staffing is on the brink. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says it's Democrats that are playing politics.
Well, what is leverage? Their leverage is to hurt the American people.
And that critical workers are going without pay.
I'm not going to, fire air traffic controllers who are trying to put food on their family's table. I am asking all of them to come to work. I want them to come to work. They have a job to do.
Big tech's bigness grows. Antitrust expert Tim Wu on the mega cap trillion-dollar-plus companies battling for speed and for business.
The most important industrial policy for the United States at home is competition. In other words, what we want a big fight at home so our companies are stronger when they face the Chinese companies.
Plus, a big deal. Kimberly-Clark is acquiring Tylenol maker Kenvue. President Trump was on 60 Minutes, and Andrew Ross Sorkin is in London, but it was close.
I was a victim of the government shutdown over the weekend.
Oh, with the planes.
It's Monday, November 3rd, 2025. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Andrew by in 3, 2, 1. Cue Andrew.
Good morning and welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. I'm Andrew Ross Sorkin along with Joe Kernen. Mike Santoli is joining us. Becky is off today. I happen to be in London, folks. So we're all together across the pond. What do you call this? Joe, is this a transatlantic broadcast? Is that what this is?
Didn't know where you were going with that. Yeah, I think so. Inquiring minds want to know, Andrew. You know what? I think you're doing. Are you casting like a British actor for 1929, the movie, or something? Because they're the best actors. Because even when they don't use the accent, even when they use they're more. I don't know. They have more credibility.
They're better. Why are the British actors better, even with the American accent that they put on?
I'm not really. But okay. But I was leading into why are you there? Can you tell us?
I am here in London because I'm speaking this evening about the aforementioned 1929 here in London, and there's a UK edition of the book. So I'm talking to a whole bunch of people, and I happen to be. You'll appreciate this. Tomorrow morning, I am going to be on the new Sky News breakfast program that is hosted by, do you know who?
Wilfred Frost?
Wolf, yeah.
Wilfred Frost. They just launched the broadcast this morning here in London. It's a big deal.
Oh,
so
really?
I'm going to be on their second broadcast.
Then what a good, that is a symbiotic thing. Good for you, good for them, good for everyone.
And Sky is now the provider, is going to be the international provider of our international news for the new Versant company, and so that every time that there's different international news that's going to come over MSNBC and possibly over CNBC, that will be in partnership with Sky. So
excellent. So you're busy.
A little bit of the explanation.
You're not going on
but
the
I should tell you,
it's a permissible absence.
It is a permissible absence. But you're not going on the eye. You're not going to the torture museum. Are you going to the tower? Are you going to that old, what is that, right near the bridge? It's so cool. Well, it's from like the 11th century.
I got no time.
Building from the 11th century, the white, whatever the hell it is.
Which one is that? I don't know what you're referencing. I was going to tell you, though, Joe, you'd appreciate this. I was a victim of the government shutdown over the weekend. I was supposed to fly here yesterday.
With the plane. Talk to your party.
I was supposed to be here last night, and the plane got canceled because of the government shutdown. It's a minor miracle I'm even here right now.
Talk to your friend. Every shutdown that's ever happened, the party that won't vote for the CR, the clean CR, is the party to blame, except this time. And I can explain it to you, these polls. You want me to explain the polls to you? 30%, ask people, 30%. 30% hate Trump. I hate Trump. Okay, so you got 30 to start. That leaves 70. The other 70, you say, would you rather have you pay for most of your health care, or would you rather have the government pay for most of your health care? So then you got, 50%. So you start at 70%. Say it's Trump's fault. It's a Republican. So these polls, but any other time it's ever been done, the party that doesn't vote for the clean CR gets blamed. So that's my analysis this morning. I hope I'm looking up.
I'm not sure that's the phrasing of the polling question, but we'll see.
That's doesn't matter whether that's a phrasing, but you want free stuff? Check here if you want free stuff. Check here if you'd rather pay for it yourself.
I am hopeful. I don't know about you. I am hopeful that actually maybe, given all the big elections that are taking place tomorrow, including in New York City, where I recommend everybody go out and vote if you can, that maybe the government gets to open after that. I've always thought that that's a key date, that maybe that's one of the holdouts the Democrats are using in all of this.
Yeah, I think also that's where the kind of the betting markets have settled around that as well, Andrew. Sometime in the days after the elections tomorrow, we will see if that's the case.
Yeah, it's a White Tower, and it's right near the bridge, and it was built in 1100. And I actually searched AI for White Castle, and something completely different came up. It had sliders and
they'll DoorDash it here if you want. All right.
Do you want me to go? Do you want me to go do the visit right now, Joe? I can go. I can take off right now and go.
You could do a heist.
I can go check out the jewels if you'd like.
There are unbelievable crown jewels there. Just put a couple in your pocket.
It always works out, as we've now
I can FaceTime the entire. Why don't I leave the set now? I can FaceTime for the rest of the show from wherever I am, and we could just go on like a walking tour of London.
White Tower.
Yeah.
President Trump says NVIDIA's most advanced semiconductors will be reserved for U.S. customers. In an interview taped on Friday that aired last night on 60 Minutes, the president said that U.S. companies should be the only ones who have access to NVIDIA's Blackwell AI chips, and that could mean a permanent ban on Blackwell chip sales to China, though the president kept the door open to China working with NVIDIA on less advanced chips. This was President Trump's first appearance on 60 Minutes since he settled a lawsuit with CBS News this past summer over an interview that was edited with former Vice President Kamala Harris. Andrew.
Meantime, as I mentioned, I was a victim of this government shutdown, but let's explain where everything stands on the government shutdown, because the president was asked about that on the 60 Minutes interview. Subsidies for Affordable Care Act are at the center of the dispute, at least between Republicans and Democrats. President Trump blasting Obamacare, but said he would work with Democrats on the program if they vote with GOP senators to reopen the government. Here's what he had to say.
We can fix it with the Democrats. All they have to do is let the country open and we'll fix it. They have to let the country open, and I'll sit down with the Democrats and we'll fix it. But they have to let the country. And you know what they have to do? All they have to do is raise 5 hands. We don't need all of them.
Today is now the 34th day of the government shutdown. It is now tied for the longest ever in American history. Now, the Trump administration must tell 2 federal judges today whether we'll follow court orders that it continue to fund the SNAP program with contingency funds. We're going to talk a lot more about this later in the show with Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. Talk about some of those air traffic delays at U.S. airports that hit myself and others.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, they told me your mic's open. I go, I hope my mic's open. It should always be open, because I was doing my Norah O'Donnell imitation. But. You're trying to.
Oh, come on. I actually thought you did a terrific job last night. I thought the president did a good job. I actually thought it was a good interview.
It was like 73 minutes or something, and the whole. I haven't watched it. The whole interview. There's other things that actually it was on after the game ended.
It was.
So theoretically, I guess I could have watched it. They're on probation with me. We're going to see. 60 Minutes. I've told you that, Andrew. I mean, it went so far one way.
So they're on probation with you, but they're not on probation with the president?
Although they had Rick Scott on. They had, oh my God, they had Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff on. Oh my God, that would have never happened.
And who else did they have on, Joe? Who else did they have on?
Andrew Ross Sorkin. They did.
Thank you very little. Thank you very little.
But that's the old 60 Minutes.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
I'm sure
Did they edit anything? Oh, I didn't like the way they edited you. I didn't. I thought it should have been much more about.
Come on.
No, the historical. They made you look good, but they didn't talk enough about the book. They talked about the crash that's coming, that they want to come, right?
I got no comment.
You're tired. You had flight problems.
Right.
What's your Aura ring today, Andrew? Give us an idea.
Oh boy, you really want to know?
I do.
I mean, they should sponsor us, and we should have like a little graphic in the bottom of the screen. It is not good. It is. What is it here? 61, Joe. 61.
Man. Be warned.
Okay, that's no good?
Yeah. See, all right.
All right.
Rest of the show, Andrew, anything, whatever you say, I'm agreeing with. Is this the most interesting off year for elections, Sorkin? I think it is. We'll talk about it more later. But I'm riveted with New Jersey because I live there, and it's so tight right now. I don't know what happens in Virginia. I guess it's a long shot at this point for Winsome Sears. And then, is Mamdani got it? Are things really tightening up, Sorkin?
I don't know. I honestly wish I knew. I'm looking at the betting markets like everybody else and thinking maybe that's the answer. That's what it's been. That answer's been relatively accurate over the years, but
George Soros might be buying every
maybe something
contract.
else happens.
George Soros might be buying every contract on across the board. Calcium, Polymarket, every. What?
Ooh.
What?
So now you think these things are being manipulated?
Yeah, now I do.
Okay.
George Will says every once in a while we should do another experiment in socialism. So that's kind of sacrifice the city of New York just so we can, sacrifice the city of New York, and who knows how many people are affected by it, just so that once again we can
relearn the lesson.
Yeah, so we can relearn it.
Meantime, we got some merger news. What's going on, Mike?
Yeah, Kimberly-Clark is buying Kenvue in a cash and stock deal valued at about $49 billion. Wow. Kenvue shareholders will receive $350 in cash and a fraction of a Kimberly-Clark share for each Kenvue share they own. The companies say the deal will create a $32 billion global health and wellness leader and deliver about $2.1 billion in annual cost synergies. Kimberly-Clark expects the transaction to boost adjusted earnings by the second year. The current CEO of Kimberly-Clark, Mike Hsu, will lead the combined company. Now, just in terms of the calculus, Kimberly-Clark is indicated lower by 12%. So if you do the fraction, it brings the per share value for Kenvue, I think, a bit under $20 a share. The stock was 21-ish when a lot of the Tylenol controversy happened and the administration started to kind of blame acetaminophen for a lot of issues. So it kind of gets Kenvue back toward that level, but interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, but Andrew, is that bad enough for them to think this wasn't so great, or you think there's implied liability from acetaminophen, or what? I mean, that's not a great market check for the day you announce something, is it?
It isn't. It isn't a great market check. I'm trying to make sense of this, though. Look at Kenvue's stock up now 19%.
Right, but below the 20.
I want to dig into some of this a little bit more before I comment. I think there's got to be something going on underneath the covers here, but maybe I'm wrong.
And whether they're covered on any future.
Well,
you can't find where there's.
No, it doesn't seem to explicitly say that. But I mean, I'll just say, in terms of how stocks react, Kimberly-Clark, is owned by people who are kind of dividend farmers, and you think it's a steady story, and so you have a big strategic move like this with some risks attached to it, and you probably get that reflex reaction. So we'll see. They're going to have a conference call, I think, jointly at 8 a.m.
Yeah. Right, but don't you think, it's got to be the risks. Look at those. I mean, that 12.5%, 13% is not a classic arbitrage.
It's not just
play.
routine arbitrage stuff.
Right. Yeah, sell one, buy the other. Yeah, that looks worse. All right, before we get, Mark Carney, that's fascinating to me that he sort of threw Doug Ford under the bus. I was just wondering, are those ads still running from? Wait, the World Series is over. Right. You lost, Doug. I'm sorry. You lost. I mean, greatest seventh game in history.
Pretty close. Probably best seventh game I've seen. Yeah.
Greatest MVP. Greatest MVP. If you haven't learned that this can make a difference on whether you win the World Series or not, that was the collision out the collision out. I thought it was over.
Multiple times.
The greatest game.
Yeah. Now I think, unfortunately or fortunately, a lot of teams are going to have their pitchers just train with javelins and stuff. That's what Yamamoto does. He doesn't use traditional training and everything else. He came out on 0 days rest and pitched almost 3 innings.
I saw two Dodgers ran together and were celebrating, and Freddie Freeman and one of the other guys, and one said to the other, "We didn't do SAT.
Yeah.
We didn't do
this guy.
We didn't do squat."
Fair enough.
Tease will be next.
Coming up next on Squawk Pod, staffing shortages due to the government shutdown snarling plane traffic this weekend. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy on air traffic controllers still on the job.
I was frustrated at the start of the shutdown. The controllers hadn't missed any pay periods. But as we sit here today, we're, 34 days into a shutdown, and there's real consequences for the family members of these air traffic controllers.
Welcome back. This is Squawk Pod.
Stand by, Joe. His mic, cue.
You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC. I'm Joe Kernen, along with Andrew Ross Sorkin over in London. Classy place.
It's noon here. It's noon.
Yes, it is noon.
We're back into line because we brought the clocks back an hour, right? Yeah.
But that's how it happened. That's right. Mike Santoli.
Yes.
Obviously, you see Becky is off today. It is day 34 of the government shutdown. Still no relief in sight for air traffic controllers. Joining us now, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. Mr. Secretary, it's good to see you this morning. We're near, I think, a real, watershed moment. Newark could be totally closed down at some point, a full ground stop. Is that imminent?
Well, listen, we're seeing like a rolling thunder throughout the system. It changes day by day of what facilities are low staffed, which means we have significant delays or cancellations. You saw Newark yesterday was incredibly rough, significant delays. But I think as we look forward, Joe, this week, at the end of this week, air traffic controllers are going to get a pay stub email that's going to tell them how much they're going to be paid next week. And that's going to be zero. And the clear point from the controllers that I've spoke with said, listen, a lot of them can deal with missing one paycheck, but a lot can't. But many of them can. None of them can miss two paychecks. They all start, their home finances fall apart. And they're all going to have to look at taking second jobs or quitting and getting into another line of work. And the consequence of that is very real for our air system. We are 2,000 to 3,000 air traffic controllers short. I'm trying to put more air traffic controllers into the system. And what this is doing is making it more challenging and actually taking controllers out of the system. So I think this has long-term impacts beyond when Democrats decide when, their little temper tantrum is over and they decide to open up the government.
This is leverage. I'm just wondering how it works. And the polls, Mr. Secretary, I can explain them, but not favorable in certain ways to Republicans. But if you look at what the minority whip said in the Senate, she basically said, look, we know this is what's going to happen. There will be families and others that are going to suffer, but we need to leverage, and we're apparently willing to use it during these negotiations. And this is one of the tipping points, I think, that's going to happen this week.
Well, what is leverage? Their leverage is to hurt the American people, right? They're willing to hurt air travelers, whether they're going to a funeral, they're going to see family members. Pretty soon we're going to have kids coming home from college for Thanksgiving break. They're willing to endanger poor people who can't get food stamps. They're willing to risk subsidies in regard to health insurance. They don't care who they hurt. They care about power. By the way, we had an election a little less than a year ago, and Donald Trump crushed it. He won the popular vote. He won the 7 swing states. Democrats lost. And so if you want to pass legislation, you can introduce it, you can debate it, but government shutdowns trying to garner leverage is not the way that you do it. Debate it, vote on it, and then come back and try to win elections. But they lost. Donald Trump won. And to now say that you are going to hurt the American people so Donald Trump has to talk to you, that's not the way you do business. The Trump administration and Republicans are not going to be held hostage by these kind of asinine tactics by Democrats.
What could the government do, or what would you suggest if we can pay the military? How could we figure something out for the air traffic controllers?
Yeah, so there's strict rules around what we can pay and what we can't pay in government shutdown. So we've kept our academy operational in the sense that we're paying our students in the academy a stipend that allows them to continue to get trained and pay their daily needs. We've paid for essential air service that goes to smaller communities. We're pulling whatever money we legally can to keep the systems running. That's been the directive from the president. Don't try to inflict pain. Try to make this easier on the American people. Even, President Trump kept SNAP running for an additional month from October to the 1st of November. We're trying to minimize the consequence, but when a government shutdown happens, you don't have resources. The Democrats haven't funded the government, and the consequence of that is there's only limited tools that we have. And so I can't just pull money from nowhere without violating the law and paying air traffic controllers. So I'm a bit in a box, and there's nothing I can do until Democrats, again, decide to put down their swords and sit at the table, pass a bill, and then negotiate for their priorities.
Is anyone who doesn't show at this point, are they going to be welcomed back, or will there become a point where you just find somebody else? Because we already have a shortage, right? You need trained people.
That's a great question. I was frustrated at the start of the shutdown. The controllers hadn't missed any pay periods. But as we sit here today, we're, 34 days into a shutdown, and there's real consequences for the family members of these air traffic controllers. Again, as you know, every day new expenses come in. There's food expenses, there's gas in the car expenses, bills come in, whether it's your heating or electric bill, your rent or your mortgage was just due, your car payment was due. So there's real economic pain being inflicted. And I'm not going to fire air traffic controllers who are trying to put food on their family's table. I am asking all of them to come to work. I want them to come to work. They have a job to do. I'm pleading with them to get into the towers and the facilities across the country and keep our airspace operational. But I also understand the real consequences of Democrat shutdown on the family lives of these controllers. And by the way, Joe, it's not just air traffic controllers. I have inspectors that are up looking at trains in different facilities across the country. I have people who are certifying airplanes all these people are working, and they're working without pay. We have really old technology in our air traffic control system. I have technicians that come in every day without pay to make sure that the equipment that the controllers are using is operational. So I have a whole slew of people who are coming in, not getting paid, but fighting for the American people to keep our transit system working. And I think I think Democrats should respect them, pay them. And again, you can sit down and you can introduce bills. You can debate those bills. You can vote on those bills. But this is not the way the process works. Joe, you and I are old enough to know, remember Schoolhouse Rock? I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill. There's a way you pass legislation. This is not it by way of a shutdown. Holding the other side leverage. You lost the election, Republicans won, and now you hurt the American people to gain leverage. That's not the way the country works. And by the way, if Donald Trump, by the way, he's not going to do this, but if he was to cower to this pressure, you would just have shutdown after shutdown after shutdown from Democrats to try to leverage their position after they lost the last election. And that's not going to work. We're not going to do it.
We need to match what we can do with safety, and that's I don't even like talking about it, whether the air is safe, and I'm sure you're doing it that way. You got to cut the number of flights that we're actually allowed to operate based on the safety you can provide. At this point, you'd say the air is just as safe as it was when the government was open, because there's a half as many flights.
So that's the consistent question I get. Is the system safe? And you see more delays, you see more cancellations of flights, and that's because we slow traffic down, because we don't have enough controllers in the towers and TRACONs to make sure we can navigate the flights. So that's a tool that we have to keep the system safe. I'm going to tell you this, though. Does it introduce another element of risk? If I have a controller doing two jobs, and by the way, they're certified, they're able to do both of those jobs. But is there more risk in the system when you have a shutdown? Absolutely, there's more risk. But if we thought that it was unsafe, we'll shut the whole airspace down. We won't let people travel. Right. We're not there at this point. It's just significant delays. But again, if you're canceled or if you're delayed for 3 hours or 4 hours on your flight, there's one side to blame. Republicans have voted to open up the government. By the way, Joe, the funding in October was the very same as it was per the Republicans' proposal in October. And these are Joe Biden era funding levels. So Democrats keep voting to shut the government down. Republicans are voting to open it. So if your flight's delayed, call your Democrat senator, tell them to open it up, tell them to have common sense, and get our country moving, and then sit down and go through the legislative process.
And Mr. Secretary, I'm coming to you actually from London this morning and happened to have a flight that was canceled on my way here. As it happens, I went through sort of a real rigmarole to make it over here. My question to you is, I was talking to a pilot last night, actually at Newark Airport on my way over here. We were discussing actually the safety issue, and he was saying exactly what you were saying, that it should be just as safe, given that there's less, planes that are coming in at any one time, but that invariably the planes oftentimes have to stay in the sky longer, meaning that they're doing lots of turns around the airport because of the delays to come in. And he said, look, the more planes you have in the sky for longer, the more risk you've added to the system. Not to say that he's suggesting it's dangerous unto itself, but how do you think the public should think about that?
Well, I think, again, it's just what you said, Andrew. It is more risk. What we try to do is keep planes on the ground until they have clearance to take off and land at their destination. So we don't like to see a significant number of planes up in the air at the same time. But that can happen. Again, is we look from one staffing group to the next. If the second staffing group of air traffic controllers start calling in sick and planes have already taken off, then we find ourselves in a situation where we have more planes in the air. We've slowed down the traffic, and that becomes problematic. By the way, I heard you were flying to London, so we made sure the FAA gave you a little problem on your flight. You're welcome for that. I'm kidding, Andrew. But I will tell you this: international flights.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I'll be sending a letter to my congressman.
No, listen. On the international flights, so we work really hard. We have international agreements on these flights, and we work really hard to make sure that our international travel functions well, because we abide by the international open skies agreements we have with foreign countries. And so we have to navigate that by way of our international contracts. So again, I have to imagine it was probably something other than air traffic controllers on your flight. But again, this is ricocheting through the economy. And so it's not just the consequence on our air travelers. We heard from the United CEO saying, listen, we're seeing our bookings come down. Less people travel. That's less people eating out at restaurants, less people staying in hotels, less people renting cars, buying gas. This starts to, ripple through the economy and has real consequences when people don't travel. And so, again, opening it back up and having the Congress actually function the way it's supposed to, going through the legislative process, is going to help the economy, help jobs, but also help those travelers who are traveling on business or for personal reasons.
All right, we're going to end it there, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate you coming on this morning. Thanks, Andrew. I wouldn't write your congressman. I think you ought to write your new mayor. I think your air travel is free at this point, to and back. Isn't that going to be part of the? No. We shouldn't have to pay for
maybe the bus to the airport.
Free
Joe.
bus to
maybe
JFK.
the bus to the airport.
Free bus to JFK. But you got to pay for your. Okay. All right. I know there's some free stuff coming our way.
I'll be paying for it, but my taxes will be higher, so I'll pay for it that way.
Oh, yeah. You, my friend, are paying for a lot from here on out. A lot.
Up next on Squawk Pod, we're talking big tech with Tim Wu. He worked as President Biden's architect on competition and antitrust. Competition fuels innovation, and big tech benefits from its challengers.
If you have these big giants, you want them fighting. If I was still in government, I'd want to sort of provoke it.
Plus, how President Trump's pardon of billionaire Binance founder CZ changes crypto.
It's a free-for-all.
You're listening to Squawk Pod from CNBC, today with Joe Kernen, Andrew Ross Sorkin in London, and Mike Santoli, who kicks off this next conversation.
Our next guest is sounding an alarm on big tech's power and its impact on the economy. Joining us now, Columbia University professor Tim Wu. He is known as the architect of the Biden administration's competition and antitrust policies. His new book is out tomorrow, The Age of Extraction, How Tech Platforms Conquered the Economy and Threaten Our Future Prosperity. It's great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you, too.
I guess just frame out big picture, why now you sound this alarm on big tech? Is it just a continuation of their dominance, or what's changing in terms of their position in the economy?
I think about 7 years ago they started becoming this dominant position. But I think usually in an economy, you start to have some serious challenges. I think they've really locked in, entrenched their power, in particular in the AI age. there's a sort of urgency. Is it just going to be them? Are they going to have such a take on the rest of the economy that nobody else can really make money?
That's an interesting piece of this because on one level, only those companies could invest on the scale they're investing in right now.
Yeah.
But the desperation and urgency that's implied and how fast they're going on that, I wonder if that suggests they believe that their core businesses are vulnerable if they don't do this. So therefore, maybe, competition is working.
I mean, I think that's the question. I think the big question right now is whether AI is actually a threat to the tech platforms or whether they manage to use artificial intelligence. They're some of the big investors to insulate themselves in perpetuity. I mean, OpenAI is not one of them. OpenAI is a challenger. So that sort of behind the scenes, people aren't paying attention to the fact that we may have the establishment of a dominant sort of global monopoly that lasts a really long time and I think extracts a big price, or we could have a real challenge from AI and a new prosperity based on that.
It's interesting, OpenAI, you mentioned that they're the challenger, but they're also creating this web of relationships with all of the kind of incumbent players, right? As one way or another, cloud services relationships. They're investing on the processor side with NVIDIA and all the rest. What does that mean in terms of how this evolves from here? And what are the costs that you're really looking at that average people might pay ultimately?
I mean, the costs are the typical costs of monopoly. I think every company looks good at the beginning, but these, Amazon, Google, so forth, they've been there a while. They're starting to extract more and more. They extract more from everybody else. Look at advertising prices. Look at what Amazon sellers sell. I think it's getting more and more. I think the key question, and I keep saying it, if you have these big giants, you want them fighting. If I was still in government, I'd want to sort of provoke it. I think government needs to scrutinize more carefully the efforts by the big tech companies to control AI so there's a fight and we see a renewal of innovation and progress.
Okay, so what, I guess, in a tangible way, could government do to kind of instigate these fights?
Well, they could take a closer look, for example, at some of the deals. There's these reverse acquisitions that they've been making of a Microsoft made one recently of an AI company. The OpenAI, Microsoft was careful not to completely buy OpenAI, but if anyone gains control, Anthropic, Amazon is trying to get control of them. I think the government should be watching and try to prevent the AI challengers from being controlled by big tech and insulating their monopolies.
Is there, I know there's a debate out there about whether some of these businesses are to some degree natural monopolies, whether, because of the network effects, because, the benefits of scale and just, Google has dominance in search, maybe for decent reasons ultimately. Now you see as a company like Alphabet feeling vulnerable on its search franchise. So I guess I keep wondering whether, in fact, even if all this money is being spent well, it might create these sort of parallel players as opposed to one big one.
It's a good question. I mean, I'm always afraid that natural monopoly is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
You just say, so nothing can happen. I believe in challenge. I believe that that's the path to greater prosperity and more innovation is companies challenging each other. So I wouldn't count everything out. I mean, I think it is an uncertain time, but I think we should have our thumb on wanting it to be more uncertain. I'm very concerned the main reason for these giant investments in AI is to try to insulate the monopoly as opposed to actually make products better. And I think we're in due. These are middle-aged monopolies. They're due for a real challenge.
And there's been a lot of attention on what has been referred to as sort of the circularity of some of these investments. I don't know if this is something you would directly have addressed, but NVIDIA, with all of its excess cash, it's pulling from all of these cloud players and such. They're kind of reinvesting it and seeding some of their customers, more or less, and having those come back in revenue. Now, they say there's no stipulation on how it's spent, but how does that work into all of this?
I think it's under-examined. I think we're in an era where, particularly antitrust enforcers have an older toolbox. They're not looking at how these web of contracts may inhibit competition in new ways, and I think it's something we need to be better with.
Andrew?
Hey, Tim, can you just speak to the pure scale of capital that's required to really fund a huge large language model, especially those that are on the frontier? And the reason I ask is because ultimately, and I think we're seeing it, some of these folks ultimately are turning to these circular deals because there isn't even enough cash as it is. So then I think to myself, how is it that we would fund all of this if, in fact, we didn't let some of these bigger companies engage themselves and get involved?
I mean, I'm not saying bigger companies can't get involved. I'll say two things. First, I'm not saying they can't get involved. I just want to make sure that the bigger monopolies do not completely buy off the threat to them from AI. I mean, for example, if Google could have somehow bought OpenAI 5 years ago, they would have. Maybe OpenAI wouldn't have sold, but there's a real danger of that happening. But also moving away from non-frontier. I mean, AI it's not quite commodified yet, but there are lower cost versions of AI that also make important challenger products. And I think we're going to see more of that in the times to come. Whether it's the Chinese competitors, whether it's just people using non-frontier but still good AI to try to challenge some of the major players.
I just have one more, which relates to you mentioned China.
Yeah.
One of the things that all of these tech companies say is we're in this, race with China, and that is so critical. And I just want to understand from your perspective whether we should be even taking that piece of it into consideration or not from a sort of national security resiliency perspective. Now that a lot of this investment, and by the way, even the tariffs have been sort of, put in the flag of national security and resilience, where that sort of plays in your thinking.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in government, we spent a lot of time trying to slow down China. I think we had some success in that with some of the semiconductor measures and so forth. But I think this is really important. I think the most important industrial policy for the United States at home is competition. In other words, what we want a big fight at home so our companies are stronger when they face the Chinese companies. And I think if we just say, well, everything's going to be invented by 2 or 3 big guys, it's like putting a huge bet on IBM in the 70s or AT&T in the 70s. Actually, it was other companies who ended up being the most important. And we sacrifice if we end up worshiping monopoly, we sacrifice our own competitiveness.
Tim, thanks a lot.
It's been a pleasure.
Coming in. Good luck with the book.
Thank you.
President Trump commenting on his pardon of Binance co-founder CZ, Changpeng Zhao. Here's what he said on 60 Minutes last night.
In 2025, his crypto exchange Binance helped facilitate a $2 billion purchase of World Liberty Financial's stablecoin. And then you pardoned CZ. How do you address the appearance of pay for play?
Well, here's the thing. I know nothing about it because I'm too busy doing the other.
But
I can only tell you that.
But he got a
No,
pardon?
I can only tell you this. My sons are into it. I'm glad they are because it's probably a great industry, crypto. I think it's good. They're running a business. They're not in government.
Yeah, there's been a lot of crypto discussion. Andrew, this was obviously one of the...
What do you think? I mean, I think he's directly saying, look, my sons like it, and they're involved in it, and involved with him to some degree. I mean,
right.
The thing about him is he's open, in that he's just saying that's how it happened. But I don't think that makes it any better, in that I think that it still undermines the credibility of this whole issue.
It's different than, I mean, we've had, I think, both sons on talking about various ventures.
Yep.
And, separate and distinct from what goes on with the president, but it's the quid pro quo, or at least the appearance of quid pro quo, or or buying a pardon, basically, with the investment in World Financial. I don't know how you'd prove that in a court of law. But
no, and also the net effect of all this is that it's sort of gone back and decriminalized most of what had been considered to be improper behavior within the crypto world, right? Not just this part, but a series of them. Where it's basically saying it's a free-for-all.
Right. But that's the question. And how much should we be concerned about, bribery and other things taking place, and money laundering taking place on these systems if it's been decriminalized?
Right. What did we think of? I was torn on whether CZ, on whether the punishment fit the crime in his case in the first one. But then whenever he came on, Andrew, and we would sort of drill down on the specifics in terms of audits and everything else, we never got really satisfactory answers there, and it always seemed like there were question marks. Remember times when he's been on, but well, then
look, in fairness to the president, the truth is that, CZ was not engaged himself in money laundering. They were using his platform for money laundering. The question is, what kind of restrictions and other things was he putting on or not putting on, and how much of this did he know was happening and effectively disregarded it? There are folks out there who say to themselves, that there's terrible things that happen on social media platforms, for example, some of which, frankly, could be even considered illegal, if you will, and nobody's, arresting the leaders of these companies. So I get that argument. Having said that, I think the connection between CZ and this company and the family itself of the president, but whatever the actual reason is for pardoning him, it sort of undermines the credibility of it. And that I think has to have some value.
That is Squawk Pod for today. Thanks for starting your week and your month with us. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern to get the smartest takes and analysis from our TV show right into your ears. Follow Squawk Pod wherever you get your podcasts. We'll meet you right back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.